everyone, welcome or welcome back to yet another video on my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jane. I'm so glad to have you here. Today's video will be my first ever wrap up, so let's talk about the 5 books that I read in the month of August. For those of you who are new, I am primarily a fantasy romance reader, but for the month of August I had booktubers choose my reads and they chose the most popular BookTok romance books, which is very much out of my comfort zone. I have never read only romance books for a whole month before, so I did cheat. I had one romantasy book in this pile only because I was in the middle of reading it and I had like 20 pages left and I just really wanted to finish it. I'm sorry, I have allergies. The first book that I read this month was Dead of Winter by Kresley Cole. This is the 3rd book in her Arcana Chronicles series. I am obsessed with this book. I gave it 5 stars out of 5, obviously. If you like Shatter Me, you'll definitely like this series. So the series as a whole is about Evie Green, who has powers where she can control nature, and she's part of the 22 major arcana. There's this game that starts every couple centuries where 22 kids will magically have powers, and then they're designed to kill each other until there's one remaining. The one who remains will live until the next game. So she has 2 love interests. There's like an Adam Kent and there's an Aaron Warner. The Adam and the Aaron in this book are called Jack and Eric, and they absolutely hate each other, but she has to travel with the 2 of them together in order to save one of her friends. Kresley is so good at writing banter. In the first book, the banter between Jack and Evie was just nothing like I've ever experienced before. I've never shipped a couple so hard. I've never giggled so hard in my life, and it was just such witty, tension-filled banter, and I loved every second of it. In this book, the banter is between the 2 love interests. So it's between Eric and Jack. I never thought I could love banter between non-love interests before, but she did it so well. At the end, one after another, there were so many aspects that I just didn't expect, and it was like plot twist after plot twist after plot twist, and this book gave me such good feels. I highly recommend you guys read this series. I do have a bookstagram where I will post some of my favorite quotes from the books that I read, so if you guys want to see what type of vibes this book gives off, you can check out my bookstagram. I posted about the first book on there, so you see like the type of banter that Kresley writes. Trust me, it will make you want to read the series. The second book that I read in the month of August was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I was really hesitant about this book. I bought it 2 years ago. It's been sitting on my shelf, not being read because it's historical fiction. So when Alexa suggested this book to me, I was instantly like scared, nervous, but also kind of excited to finally have a reason to push me to read this book and get it off of my TBR. I feel like there were life lessons in this book. There's just so much to take away from this book. It's so good that it could be considered a classic. The story itself, but also Taylor's writing is just so simplistic, but yet so elegant. The way that she splices her sentences, the way that she separates them into different paragraphs. This was my first ever book by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm excited to give her other books a try. If you do have any good recommendations that you think I would like, please let me know in the comments. So this book is about Monique, who works at a magazine and she's a writer. Evelyn Hugo is like this super famous Hollywood star. Now she's 70 years old, but back in the day she was so well known. She kind of gives me Marilyn Monroe vibes. Evelyn requests this magazine write an article about her, and her story has never come out. She's never had her life story told to anybody. She has so many secrets and she's just kind of a mystery. You just know that she has 7 husbands. She specifically requests Monique write this article, and she said very clearly, either Monique writes the article or I walk. And then when Monique arrives to interview Evelyn, Evelyn is like, the whole story about me wanting you to write an article was just a lie to get you here, and actually I want you to write my biography. and you're gonna publish it when I die, which is gonna be soon. Basically, you follow her story, and then throughout the chapters, there's also a bit of Monique in there. There's just so many topics that's talked about in this book that are really important. There's women in a male-dominated industry, identity, there's culture, there's sexuality, there's race. I would recommend everyone to read this book at least once. Give it a try. Highly enjoyed this book so much more than I thought. I also forgot to give my rating. I gave this book 5 stars. The next book that I read was also a suggestion by Alexa. She suggested The Love Hypothesis by Ellie Hazelwood. I actually am kind of disappointed with this book. I gave it 3.5 stars, which is a very low rating. I know most people give this book a 5-star rating, but I just didn't vibe with it. Throughout the whole story, I felt like I was an outsider reading in. I wasn't immersed in the story. I wasn't captivated by it. I did ship Adam and Olive, but I felt very detached from the story. There was just something that just didn't click with me. Also, there is a spice scene in here, which I absolutely hated. I felt like their whole relationship was just so pure, so innocent, so wholesome, and then to stick a scene like that in there, I felt was just so inappropriate and so not needed. It just didn't go with the tone of the book, I found. So fake dating, I think, is unrealistic, but there was one aspect that really stuck out to me that was so unrealistic. At the beginning, when they start to fake date, they go on these like 10-minute coffee dates every single Wednesday. After one single 10-minute coffee date, and after one kiss that lasted maybe 5 minutes, Olive was like, I know his hair length super well now, that I can tell that he got like the slightest trim. How can you know someone so well after spending 20 minutes in total with the guy that you know he got a trim? So this book is about Adam and Olive. Olive is a PhD student. Adam is a professor. They're both in the same department of biology, I believe. Olive has a best friend named Anne, and Anne has a crush on Olive's ex. So in order for Olive to let Anne know it's okay for her to get together with her ex, she tries to convince her that she's actually moved on and she's dating someone else. So one day when Anne is like coming to see her, Olive grabs the first man she sees and kisses him. And that just happens to be Dr. Adam Carlson, who is the most notorious, unpleasant, unagreeable asshole in the whole entire department. So she kisses him, and then surprisingly, she explains her situation and he actually agrees to fake date her. So for me, there's 2 types of miscommunication. I know most people don't enjoy miscommunication, but I actually find there can be a good miscommunication. Good miscommunication happens when there's banter between 2 characters and the miscommunication just builds on that banter, and I love that type of miscommunication because it feeds into the tension between the 2 characters and it makes it so much sweeter when they actually get together. But then there's also bad miscommunication where it's just infuriating and it's just annoying and it's not necessary, and this book had bad miscommunication. It did address a good topic though, which was women in STEM, which I really liked. I'm applying for grad school right now, and there were a couple emails in here that I feel like I could really use when writing to professors. I also like seeing the grad school aspect of things, like the behind the scenes, what it's like being a grad student. I maybe would reread it in the future just to reevaluate my reading. The next book that I read was a recommendation from Julie Bonney, and that is Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I've heard really great things about this series, mainly from Steph Boyer. She's been writing about it since day 1 on her channel. I didn't think I would like this story as much as I did. I had 0 expectations. I don't know what it is. I just really love the book. I was convinced it was a 5-star read for me from the beginning. I don't know if it's the writing or the story or the plot. I have 0 ideas what I liked about it, but I just really vibed with the story. So I ended up giving this book 4 stars, only because towards the end they really started to enable each other to the point where it was just too toxic for me to handle. So for those of you who don't know, this book is about Lily Calloway and Lauren Hale. Lily is addicted to sex. Lauren is addicted to alcohol. They've been best friends for as long as they can remember. They devised this deal to fake date and live together in order to hide their problems from their families and from their friends. And so they do this by covering for each other, taking care of each other, and making sure that their family just doesn't find out about their addictions. Towards the end, they actually start dating and they realize that part of their addiction is actually to each other, but then their addictions just don't work together and they clash a lot and they enable each other a lot, and it's a very, very complicated, toxic, and harmful relationship. I don't know anything about this series, but Rose and Connor, I just know there has to be a story for Rose and Connor, and I'm so excited to read that because I love Rose, I love Connor. So if you guys know which book their story takes place in, please comment it down below because I would die to read that book. Towards the end, I really, really couldn't stand that Lily was using her own addiction in order to distract Lo from his addiction. And then there was one scene where Lo wanted to distract her from his relapse, and he used her addiction against her to distract her. And I absolutely couldn't stand that. I lost like the tiniest bit of respect for him because I felt like that was so unacceptable. It really didn't sit well with me. And also Reich, he literally popped out of nowhere. In this book, there was the good type of miscommunication because when you're fake dating, you just know that Lily loves Lo and Lo loves Lily, but more than in a friend's way. And they keep getting into these arguments, into these situations where they keep not telling each other how they actually feel, so they keep making assumptions, but it just feeds into the tension, which makes it so much sweeter when they actually do get together and admit their feelings. I'd be okay not reading the rest of the series. It doesn't have that like romantic-y feel where like I need the second book. I finished this book today and it's September 1st, so it's cheating a tiny bit, but I'm gonna include it in my August wrap-up anyway, and that is none other than Sarah Caroli's indirect recommendation, which is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I don't listen to audiobooks normally, but this book, I purely listened to it as an audiobook because I was just so rushed. I really absolutely wanted to finish this book in time for September. I was multitasking while listening to it. It was my first ever audiobook experience. I have to say, I'm a very visual person, so audiobooks are not my thing. It was super well narrated. It was narrated by Julia Whalen, and I find she does such a good Libby impression. She does such a good Nora impression, and she does such a good Charlie impression. The voices that she would use, the way she would narrate, I just loved her. But as a whole, audiobooks are just not for me. I can't even listen to podcasts while driving because I'm not even kidding. Every segment, I have to rewind at least 10 times before it sticks in my brain. For that reason, this book didn't stick with me as much as it would have if I had read it. I just love the way Emily Henry writes. Her writing is just so beautiful. Sometimes the way she describes things so indirectly, can't describe it, but I absolutely love her writing. So in this book you follow Nora Roberts, who is a literary agent. She is absolutely a city gal. Her life is her work, and that's all she cares about besides her sister Libby. Charlie Lastra is an editor. So at the beginning of the book, you see them meeting for the first time. Their interaction doesn't go well at all. She's trying to pitch him a book. He doesn't like it at all. They disagree. And then you fast forward like a couple years later, I think 2 years later, when her sister is convincing Nora to go to a small town with her for a girls trip. So she agrees to go with her sister. Her sister is super excited. She comes up with like a whole list of things to do there. At the small town, she keeps running into none other than Charlie. There was a plot twist in this book. Like, Emily was leading us in one direction regarding Libby, and then at the end it was like something completely different, which I really didn't expect. The spice level of this book was like 1 out of 5, but I absolutely love the way she writes her intimate scenes. The language that she uses is just so beautiful. Emily has a way of spinning her spice scenes using certain language, describing certain things without actually describing them explicitly. She is one of my buy immediately authors. I really do want to reread this book, but like actually read it, because I feel like I missed out on a lot of detail with the audiobook. I realized it's actually my first small town romance and I loved every bit of it. So highly recommend you guys try this out if you haven't already. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys share your thoughts and comments on some of these books. Bye!